It's a, oh man, that's too close right there. Yeah.
What's up?
For posterity, here we go.
You just call me Stack Out. Mr. Cardinal understands that one.
There you go. Yes, I do.
Unfortunately. Yeah. Never be invited to their house again.
Anytime you want, buddy. There's been worse things like that have been done in there. I think Joey holds the record. He only killed 2 dogs.
At this time, I would like to, continuing with the thank yous, the Cardinal family has been with us for a long time now, and they've done a lot of work in terms of correspondence and organizing the booster events, and they've been very big supporters. They're at every game, they're very active and supportive. Anytime we needed a letter sent, anytime we needed something organized within the booster club, anytime we need something communicated, they were always there, and they were very active in a number of fundraisers that we've had over the past few years. And as Joe graduates and they'll be leaving the program, on behalf of the baseball program, we'd like to present Mr. and Mrs. Cardinal for outstanding contributions to West Essex baseball. Thank you.
Go with the coach. Go with the coach.
Abuse.
Get ready. Okay. Okay.
And he told me at that time when I first started that the best friends you'll ever have in life are the people that you coach with, that you meet through coaching. And to Coach Trongone, the way he taught his players discipline this year, he taught them to meet their expectations in and out of the classroom. He taught them to be into the game and compete, and he worked with them countless hours to make improvements. And the things that he's done for the program in terms of scouting and in terms of working over the summer, just as Mr. DeSanti and Mr. Caprio did with the Junior American Legion program, it's really just a fantastic addition and a pleasure to have with us. Coach Trongone, thanks. One of the challenges of getting great help and getting great people in a high school program is that very often you have to have people who are available by 2:30. And sometimes the people who are available, they may not have the know-how and expertise of people who just stepped off the field in a national championship setting at Montclair State. And we're fortunate enough to have 2 of those guys. And it's just a challenge to get people who are so competent and qualified and can also be here. I had more of an opportunity to watch Coach Whalen coach this year just on the circumstances of when our games ended and when their games ended. And I could say that he honestly coaches every single pitch. He instructs every inning. And I feel he just gives the team the same type of top-flight quality instruction that he received in an unbelievable college program at Montclair State University. He's scouted. When his team's done, he comes up and he meets with our team, and he serves as almost an extra assistant. And just a fantastic coach and a wonderful addition to our program, to Coach Whalen. Thank you. To Coach Renshaw, he's not only a fantastic baseball instructor, but he's also does an outstanding job. He does our pitch calling. He calls all our pitches, and he does a fantastic job in understanding our pitcher's strengths, the opposing hitter's weaknesses. He does a very good job calling pitch outs, as you may well know from some of the games. He's a master at stealing and picking up other teams' signs. And as far as I can see, I have him as the best batting practice pitcher in the state. He's just tremendous. He comes every day. He never tires out. Mixes all speeds, all angles. Outstanding. And these guys, the program, the direction that we're headed in terms of facilities and the types of players that we have coming up, the work that they're putting in with our lower level players is really going to be a great benefit in the up and coming years. And to have people like this and friends like this, the loyalty and the commitment that they've shown, I can say I honestly know what Jack Burke was talking about when he said that the greatest friends you'll meet and you'll have, you'll meet through coaching. So thanks to all these guys for who they are and what they do. They just kicked the music in as talk about the season. A year ago, we probably had the extreme best of circumstances. We started on March 1st, and it was 70 degrees and sunny every single day. And this year was the exact opposite. It was the extreme worst. I think on March 6th, I think it might have been, Dr. Pelosi called an early dismissal, I believe. And we came in on the 7th to basically a foot of snow. And obviously, we started a week later. We had a foot of snow, and so that set us up already for adverse conditions. Our opener was postponed, and we opened on April 3rd against Hanover Park, and we lost the game 2-1 to an all-state pitcher. And then after that, Parsippany Hills, Mendham Summit, and Mount Olive, our next 4 games were snowed out as we got yet another snowfall. So we had to go back inside, and obviously did not get back out again until April 14th when we went to Mars Hills. And it was the same result. We ran into an all-state pitcher, and we lost the game 2-1, in which we played very well in both games, and I felt our pitchers matched their pitchers, not in their strikeout total, but in the performance that they gave. So we started our year 0-2, and then the next day we came out against Dover, and the baseball seemed like a beach ball because they were looking at BBs for the previous 14 innings. And we pounded Dover pretty good. We had a very good game. And the following Saturday, we had a very quick makeup game with Summit. We put them right in. It was that time that I really felt that something pretty special happened for our team. We were down by 1 run in the bottom of the 7th inning, our last at bat, and it all started really with a fly ball. It was Naveen. He was up, and we spent a lot of time preaching getting the ball and play with 2 strikes, and he was able to do that. And he didn't hit a pop-up. It wasn't really routine. It was probably, if you're a Summit coach, a ball they expect to be caught 100% of the time. And it went in and out of his glove, and we tied the game in the 7th inning. We forced it to extra innings, only to relinquish the lead and then come back with 2 more in the bottom of the 9th. And I felt that that was pretty special because, for one, I had never had a team relinquish a lead in extra innings only to come back and win it again. And for the second reason, I really felt that we were dangerously close to being 1-3 while having 4 of the best pitch games consecutively that I've ever seen as baseball coach here. And instead, we were able to pull it to 2-2. So you might not think that sounds like a big deal, but 2-2 is a whole lot better than 1-3 when you're starting out and you're hoping for Greater North Tournament seeds and state tournament seeds and so on. So after an 0-2 start, the game started to pile up. The weather never got great, but there was no snow, and before you know it, we were 16-3. And even the reporter from the Star-Ledger called me up, and he said, I'm going through my notes and I'm checking, and I thought maybe I missed a game or 2. He said, aside from your loss to 2 all-state pitchers and a very good Milburn team, you guys haven't lost other than that. And it was a nice compliment to hear, and obviously a strong statement for the way we played after coming out of the gym and having a few tough games. After that, we lost to Mars Hills again, same pitcher, all-state pitcher, Dan McDonald. And then we were able to come back and beat Essex Catholic and Mendham, suffered a very upsetting state tournament loss to Caldwell, and then again come back and finish our season by beating Mount Olive. After an 0-2 start, we did not suffer consecutive losses again. It only happened 1 time. And after that start, we managed to win 16 out of 17 games, 18 out of 20, and 19 out of 22. As impressive as that was, what was more pleasing to me was the way we responded after the letdowns. To have disappointing losses in the Greater North Tournament against Milburn and a disappointing loss in the state tournament to Caldwell, we're able to come back real soon, get on the bus, go on the road, and win a game on the road on both occasions. And that was impressive to me. in our run that we put together, we had a 9-game winning streak, a 7-game winning streak. And in an ordinary year, I told all the players that we probably played well enough to win the conference. But obviously, this was no ordinary year. We finished 14-3 in the league, and our 3 losses were dealt to us by 2 pitchers that I feel, in my professional opinion, that as they go on years down the road, barring injury, they'll be drafted by major league organizations. And when we did not see those pitchers, we did not lose a game in our league. To put it in perspective, just how competitive our conference was this year, Hanover Park's going to go out on Tuesday to play for the overall Group 2 championship. They also won the Morris County Tournament Championship. They have a chance to finish their year with 29 wins, which is almost unthinkable at the high school level. And when you consider that Hanover was maybe a 29-win team, they didn't even win our conference. Morris Hills played better than they did within our league, and they won it. So that sort of puts in perspective just how tough the league was. And following up on that, just to explain how tough our schedule was, Morris Hills, who won our league, played the section semifinal against Milburn, and Milburn beat them. So that, I think, speaks volumes for Milburn, a team that beat us. The fact that they beat Morris Hills, who was able to win our league as good as it was. And I think that really puts in perspective just how tough the season was and how capable our schedule is as well. In all of our games, there were 14 instances which we define within our team as decision time. And what we mean by decision time is that if the game is tied or just a 1-run difference in the 5th inning or beyond, we call it decision time because it can really go either way. And in those 14 instances at which it happened, we came out with 10 wins and 4 losses. And that means that the boys played under an enormous amount of pressure all season long, and they were able to produce in those situations and still come out on top. And if you were at the games, you have to realize that many of those games could have gone either way, and 10-4 could have been 4-10 if it were not for the way they played. This time I'd like to call up all the players. I'm going to start with the sophomores, and I will briefly say a statement about each player. Coach, if you can come up and assist me. And then you can just return to your seat. After that, I'll call up the seniors. The first player is Will Corder. Will showed an athleticism, an athletic maturity beyond his years this year, and he made an enormous contribution both as a hitter, an infielder, and as a pitcher. And we expect that he's going to be a real exceptional player before he leaves here in 2 years with a lot of eligibility left. Will Corder. Next player, Chris Scarmazzino. Chris has excellent range, and as a result, earned a position in center field as only a sophomore. I think it says a lot for a sophomore to earn a starting position as a center fielder, and obviously, having said that, he's a very promising young player. Chris Scarmazzino. Ryan Regan. Ryan has all the tools to be a force in our team in 3 areas. He's going to develop into an outstanding hitter. He's probably the incumbent shortstop in our infield, and at the same time, he's a strong possibility he has something to offer as a pitcher as well. Good job, Ryan. Next player, Charlie Saracea. One of the reasons Charlie spent time with us is that he can just flat out fly on the base paths. He runs the bases with intensity. The times that he was up with us, he hit very well, did a very good job with the bat. And again, the things that he showed us on the base paths were the reasons that we called on him this year. Charlie Saracea. Next we go to our juniors. First junior, Anthony Durso. Anthony can beat you with his speed, and he can beat you with his bat. saying goes in baseball with your leadoff hitter, when he goes, you go. And this year, when he went, we really went. Anthony Durso. Matt Skopak. A year ago, as only a sophomore, Matt was selected to the Iron Hills Conference team. He was also second team All-Essex County as only a sophomore, and I think this year really starting to earn a reputation not only as one of the finer catchers in the area, but as one of the finer all-around baseball players in the area. I think a player that probably has a chance to get some further recognition this spring with the year he had. Matt Skopak. Frank Surza. Frank won some games on the mound in very impressive fashion for us, and I felt that he pitched well enough to win in defeats to Mars Hills and Milburn. With a year of eligibility left and further development, we expect some real big things with him because he's an enormous talent on the mound. Frank Surza. Next player is Nick Coro. Nick has a lot of pop in his bat. He conditions himself very well, very, very strong, physical type of player, plays very aggressive, and we feel that the type of guy that can really be the type to be a threat to hit extra base hits and possibly home runs. Nick Coro. Next player is Mark Picardo. Mark really made an excellent contribution to our team this year. He did a lot of different things. He hit some extra base hits. He broke out the short game in terms of putting bunts down, both base hits and sacrifices. Did a very, very good job drawing walks and working pitchers. And he's also one of our pitching prospects for next year in our program, Mark Picardo. Steve Placzynski. Steve provided us with very good infield depth. He made a nice contribution in that win that I felt was very important so early in the year against Summit. He was the runner that scored when Naveen hit the ball. He was hit by a pitch, actually, and a player that we feel is an infield prospect and gave us some very good depth this year, Steve Placzynski. Next year, it's going to present to Anthony. Now, I know some people might try to look at the season that Weequake had and consider their record and not really acknowledge that accomplishment. But if you took a look at some of the scores in the games Weequake played, they were much improved this year. And if you were at the game, one of their players even hit a foul ball that was out of the park for a home run. And as coaches, we know well enough to know that anybody holding an aluminum bat in high school baseball can be dangerous. And if you have an opportunity to, then that's really a significant accomplishment to throw a no-hitter. And as we call Anthony up to accept his letter, we have a special award for May 14th against Weequake, West Essex 12, Weequake nothing. Really just brings a great enthusiasm in our dugout. Really genuinely only cares about if the team wins, whether he's in the lineup or not. And what he gives in the presence and cheering on his teammates is as if his brother Nick never left. Come on up, man. Okay, before I call the seniors, I'd like to just mention their name, and you can stay seated until I finish my comments and then come up for your award. The first senior that I'm going to call up is Naveen Alam, and Naveen is a 3-year letter award winner. I mentioned before that the reason we do spend a lot of time preaching the value of getting the ball in play with 2 strikes. The reason is that somewhere between 30 and 40% of the time, it fluctuates a little each season. If you hit a ball on the ground at the high school level, 30 to 40% of the time the runner winds up on base. That's the national average fluctuates in between there. So what's so important to us is that we get a guy in the infield, especially at shortstop, that's not maybe the most flashiest, but he can just go out there and keep a routine ball routine. Most high school shortstops very often struggle to pick up balls, and sometimes if they pick it up, they struggle to throw it over to first base accurately on a consistent basis. 3 years ago, about 8 games into the season, we made a change and put Naveen at shortstop. And for the next 3 years, what he brought was consistency every day. In about 2 3/4 seasons, I guess you can say, he had well over 100 assists, 60 putouts, and there's nothing more reassuring to a pitching staff and to a team to know that each and every time that if the ball's hit to shortstop, it's an out. I think that if you know for 3 years that you're reliable at shortstop, then you've really got something special on your team as well. What's important to us as a coaching staff is the pride that Naveen really took every day. I think the intensity that he brought to work out at shortstop and get his fungos in and his reps in really rubbed off well on our younger infielders. The example that he set, because his defense was so important to him. As our shortstop, he was our quarterback, relaying looks and pickoffs. He did it as smoothly as anybody can do it. He really did. And as well as he was as a defensive player for the past 3 years, I don't want to overlook the job that he did offensively for us this season. His on-base percentage was .451. He had 22 hits, 4 off an All-State kid, Dan McDonald. He had 9 walks, 13 RBIs, and I thought for a player to put together the year he did in the number 9 spot, really extended our lineup and made it turn over, almost made it cyclical, so to speak, instead of being top-heavy and bottom-light. Just a very solid senior year, and one of the most consistent infielders you can have on your team. Naveen Iliano. Okay, Dave Tomei is the next senior I'm going to call up in a moment. Another 3-year player, next player I'm going to, 3-year award winner is Mike Kayak. Mike began really the off season, I guess if I go back to the fall, with a lot of adversity, Half the room may not, and the other half may, with all the controversy they had over the few years. But the reason I bring that up is they did a feature not too long ago about a player, Mariano Rivera, in their farm system. They were just about to trade him for Felix Fermin. And they saw and they noticed that his fastball went from 91 miles an hour to 95 miles an hour. And they were trying to figure out how a guy goes to bed one night throwing 91, he wakes up the next day throwing 95. The next player that I'm going to call up progressed to such an extreme this year that it almost reminds me of that feature that I saw. The next player is Ray Anderson, and Ray's going to look to continue his college career at Montclair State University as well. So we wish him all the best with it. Next senior is Joe Cardinale, and for 2 years now, Joe has been selected to the All-Iron Hills Conference team. So it's obvious that he's a very talented player. What is a real delight as a coach is when your best players are also your hardest workers and they also have the best attitude. That seems to equate to a leader that will often make other people around them better. And having said that, given that Joe was our 3-hitter in our lineup, and given that he was on the all-conference team for the past 2 years, his reputation preceded him. And opposing pitchers were going to approach him differently than they approached all of our other hitters. They were going to throw him more breaking balls. They were going to give him less pitches to hit. They were going to decide that if West Essex beat them, they weren't going to allow Joe Cardinale to do it. And in terms of his performance, which I'll get to in a minute, behind closed doors, what I saw was a player that prepared for very difficult circumstances given the way other teams were going to set up to oppose him. And power hitters very often have a tendency to try to do too much, have a tendency to try to overswing, to pull too much, maybe chase bad pitches and lose their balance. And not many of our players beat Joe into the batting cage this year. Very few were still there very often when it was 9 or 9:30 and he was still working out. The results that he got from the work that he did, in my opinion, are one of the finest seasons of any player that I've ever coached. And another that has a real good chance for some serious recognition when all-star teams get announced in a week. On the year, his on-base percentage was .520. He batted .447. He had 34 hits, 11 doubles, 4 home runs that were cardinal shots. Some of the home runs that he hit his second career Grand Slam. We spoke about his first one a season ago. One against Dover put the game out of reach. Another against Essex Catholic put the game out of reach. One for Mount Olive won us the game. And there's a foul ball home run that he hit against Summit that still hasn't come down yet. He also drove in 30 runs on the season. He had 30 RBIs. And just where I mentioned about Naveen with his defense, I didn't want to overlook his offense. I really don't want to underrate or underestimate the job that Joe did at first base this year. I don't know how many times we screamed out, way to help him, Joe, and how many times at the Montclair-Kimberly game, he pretty much put on a defensive clinic at first base with all the tosses he gave to the pitcher and all the putouts that he had. So obviously Joe led us in so many areas, but we have a coach's award, and I want to tell a quick story about one of the reasons that made Joe earn this award. There was a time earlier in the year when we were off from school, we went to Nutley, and I felt in a scrimmage game we just simply did not show up. And I told the team in the outfield after the game that we had just gone to war with Iraq, and I said, somebody's laying in a bunker right now, and they don't know if they're going to see tomorrow. And you're off from school, it's 70 degrees, believe it or not, and you're 16 to 18 years old, you play against the defending county champions, and it seems like you didn't even want to be here, you didn't even show up. So the next morning I was driving in, and I was thinking about how I was going to reiterate that to the team. And as I was about to push the locker room door open, Joe had already closed the door, and he was already telling to the team a lot of what I just said. And he was expressing to all his teammates how much it bothered him to lose, and also how much he believed in each and every one of them in the room, and also how most importantly, that can never happen again. And in my 8 years at West Essex, I never had a team that showed up every single day the way this team did, with a spark in our dugout and an enthusiasm and willingness to compete. And I attribute it a lot to his leadership along with some of the other upperclassmen, and to follow his lead. And maybe that's those moments when a boy becomes a man and just decides that something needs to be said, so he decides to close the door, speak from the heart, and say it. And to me, that's just a tremendous job of leadership and just an outstanding season. We have a coach's award, as I just mentioned, and Drew University, where Joe's headed next year, is going to get an outstanding baseball player, Joe Cardinale. In closing, there were 6 of our starters this year that were on a team 3 years ago that went 9-17. They were all freshmen and sophomores then. And to watch where they were then as compared to now, I'd probably have to check the record books. I told them to go back and see if there's ever been a West Essex team to reel off 16 out of 17 wins or 19 out of 22, whatever it was. When the season ended, aside from Seton Hall, we had the second highest win total of any baseball team in Essex County with 19. And I really think that if we didn't lose 4 games to rainouts because of bad weather, then 20 wins or more was certainly a reality and a realistic goal. Maybe what's more important is we have a saying in our program, it's called hold on to the rope. And what that means is if you're hanging off the edge of a cliff and you're holding on to one end of a rope for dear life, who would you want to hold on to the other? And when we first ask each player, they always say, my brother, my father, my uncle, my cousin. And what we try to build on every day is that when the answer becomes any one of your teammates, then we can be one. And maybe what's most important is this year, whenever they felt that moment, whenever they felt that they were in that position, whether it was tying run on third against Barringer in the 7th or tying run on third against Mount Olive in the 7th, or winning run on second against Summit. I think that every player knew they could look into our dugout and know that there were 14 players and 2 coaches holding on to the other end. And 14 players and 2 coaches who, without question, were focused on only one goal. And maybe they don't realize it now, but when they look back and then they're in their careers and they have their families, maybe they'll realize that that was more of a significant accomplishment than any win we ever had all year. Just the way they bounded together and pulled for one another, and that can't happen unless you have good people. For those reasons, myself and our staff will remember them forever. And a round of applause for 2003 West Essex baseball team. I think Mrs. Skopak is going to come up and present the senior gifts. Thank you.
Scott doesn't know this, but we have a special presentation this evening for him, and Dee Cardinale is going to make that before I give out the gifts.
I promise not to take up too much of your time. Tonight, we've already said we're here to acknowledge the West Essex baseball teams and all their accomplishments this season. But baseball, when you think about it, is a truly unique sport. Baseball teams are unlike any other sports team. The baseball coach is unlike any other coach. The baseball coach dons a uniform just like his players. No other sport does that. The baseball coach takes to the field with his players. No other sport does that. He doesn't just lead the team, he is truly part of the team. And these coaches have shown tonight to all of us how much they really are a part of all these boys. And I think it's wonderful. A coach by definition is one who instructs, but our head coach, Scott Iliano, does so much more than that. His passion for baseball and his genuine caring for his players shows through consistently. He leads by example and always sets the bar high. He treats the boys with respect, always demonstrates good sportsmanship, supports the team, and expects nothing less from his boys. Over the past few years, I've had the distinct pleasure of getting to know Scott and the fine gentleman that he is. This year, you've already heard the fantastic season that the varsity team had. Although there were tough losses, there were a great many exciting wins. And on April 30th, the varsity team reached a milestone. The boys, who always strive to win, always went out to win, that day wanted a victory just a little bit more, not so much for themselves, but for their coach. You see, on April 30th, when West Essex defeated Parsippany Hills 11-4, it became Scott Iliano's 100th victory as a baseball coach. So, on behalf of the West Essex baseball boosters, I'm honored to present this plaque to Scott in recognition of his 100th victory on April 30th, and we wish him success as he's on his way to his second 100 victories.